Imagine you're a zebra grazing happily down in the savannah, enjoying yourself and following, oh, where the grass is greener, where the grass is greener, not even noticing that you have walked pretty far away from the rest of your herd. And then you smell something weird, and then you hear some rustling in the grass, and then you kind of turn your head and look, and there's something moving in the grass. It's a lion. What do? You jump and start running, right? And you start running, and the lion is jumping and running after you. And so you zigzag, you jump over a bush, and try to avoid the lion. If the lion gets too close, you kick. Zebra kick can break a lion's jaw, her lion's arm or front leg, and and can injure, the incapacitate, or even kill a lion. So don't underestimate the little zebra. But the best point of action is to run away and run, 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 run. If you run fast enough, the lion is going to get tired and give up, and you are going to join your herd and woof, sigh of relief, and you go back to grazing together with the rest of your herd. So, what is happening in your body through this whole episode? That is what we call stress response. It works like this: you're going to have the sensory system. Remember, you smelled, and then you heard, and then you looked. So, you use three senses, three different sensory systems to detect that there is danger in the environment. Something in the environment has changed, right? You thought it was nice and peaceful, you're eating grass. Suddenly, there's a change in the environment, and you perceive that uh, change in the environment is dangerous. You perceive it rightly because lion is dangerous. Um, the sensory systems are going to then go to the integrator. What is an integrator? Integrator in an animal that has a nervous system is going to be central nervous system. It's going to be the brain and spinal cord. The brain and the spinal cord are going to process that sensory information and start making decisions. Those decisions are going to be what? Those decisions are going to be nerve impulses to the muscles, telling the muscles to run or to kick or to buck or to do whatever it takes to get rid of the lion and run away. So once you have run away, you have returned the environment back to normal. You're now safe. There's no perceived danger because the lion has walked away. So, change in the environment is sensed by sensors, which then send that information to the integrator, which in animals with brains is a brain, and then the integrator gives instructions to the effectors, in which in this case the effectors are muscles that are going to do the work necessary to bring the environment back to normal. Sounds almost like a negative feedback loop, except it is now the external environment and not the internal environment that you want to keep constant, or it's a kind of optimal level. You want an environment that does not contain a lion right really next to you. Um, so that schematic works for everybody. We're talking about humans in this class, but it works for bacteria. They're going to detect using molecules on their surfaces that there is a greater and greater concentration of, let's say, nutrients in a particular direction, will swim in that direction, or greater and greater concentration of a toxin is going to swim away from that toxin. Some bacteria can detect a magnetic field of the Earth, and if they swim down that, they're going to go deeper into the lake and the sediment because those are anaerobic bacteria. So further away from the surface, less oxygen. They don't want to be in a water that has too much oxygen. So it works in bacteria. There's a sensor on the surface. There's an integrator, which is the entire cell, and there's the effector, cilia or flagellum or whatever that is going to allow it to swim. Uh, Plants do the same thing, fungi do the same thing, but animals have brains, animals have nervous systems. And they're, of course, very, very multicellular. So you're going to have not just one molecule on the surface, you're going to have multiple sensory systems constantly tracking the environment. You're going to have a complex central and peripheral nervous system that is going to be the integrator, putting in that input from the sensory systems and making decisions. And then you're going to have effectors, which in this case, when you need to run, are muscles. So one of the things that happens is there's feedback loops going between those. So, for instance, not just that your senses are going to detect, let's say, a lion or danger or some kind of a change in the environment, but then when that is detected, the integrator, the brain, is going to tune up. Is going to change sensitivity of your senses, so you actually see a little bit better, hear a little bit better, smell a little bit better for a few minutes. Um, there's also going to be feedback from, let's say, muscles. Muscles are going to tell the integrator that they are tired or they need more calcium or more glucose or more oxygen in order to work. So feedback loops are going to happen between those three elements of the stress response: the sensory system, the nervous system, and the muscular system. The integrator is also not always going to integrate it the same way. Uh, for instance, both zebra and lion are diurnal animals, which means this kind of encounter is most likely to happen during the day because both of those animals are day active. Both of them are sleeping during the night. So if this encounter just happens to happen during the night, let's say, uh, the herd of zebras kind of slowly moving through the night and kind of napping, kind of moving, and steps on a lion. Oops. Um, and wakes up the lion, never wake up the lion. So this is going to happen at night. Now, what's going to happen is that there's, circadian system is going to temper down a lot of the stuff in the body, which means that the integrator is going in both the lion and the zebra is going to act slower. All the sensory systems are going to be less sensitive at night than during the day. You don't see that well at night. You don't hear that well at night. You don't smell that way as well at night. Um, and the muscles are not going to be as fast and energized. So the chase might happen, but the whole thing is going to be a little bit slow motion compared to the day. So those are all sorts of effects. There are all sorts of other things that are happening that can be influenced, let's say, by levels of hormones. Are you full of estrogen at that moment or full of progesterone at that moment? That is going to affect the nervous system and how is it going to respond to different kinds of stresses. Uh, so, integrator is changeable, sensory systems are changeable, and the muscles are changeable, and they're going to be operating at different rates or even in different ways depending on time of day, time of year. Is it male or female? Is it young or adult or old? What kind of hormones are in the body? So, all those things can be modulated. What is really important to remember is that during stress response, nervous system is also going to trigger the secretion of epinephrine and norepinephrine from the adrenal gland, from the adrenal medulla. Those are primary, fast acting um, stress hormones. Remember, norepinephrine is neurotransmitter of the sympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system is the part that brain is going to stimulate during the stress response, while parasympathetic is going to be inhibited. Uh, Epinephrine and norepinephrine are going to act just like sympathetic system. Instead of nerve impulses, which are short acting but really fast, it's a little bit slower but lasts a little bit longer. And then if this whole chase lasts even longer, cortisol will also be secreted from the adrenal cortex, which is a little bit slower stress response, longer acting, and is important for breaking down glycogen into glucose inside of the cells and then kicking the glucose out of the cells into the bloodstream, sending it to the muscle. What is important to know is that muscles are the primary effector in the stress response, which means that the sympathetic system and the epinephrine and norepinephrine as hormones are going to do everything in their power to ensure that muscles can work really hard, really fast. What do muscles need? Remember from last semester, they need glucose as a source of energy. They need oxygen as a recipient of electrons during the breakdown of glucose. If there's not enough oxygen, the glucose is not going to be broken down properly. So instead of having all that energy in ATP, which is necessary for muscle contraction, you are going to have, uh, greater heat and free radicals. The muscles need a lot of oxygen in order to be able to burn the the glucose properly in order to get as much ATP as possible, which is needed for muscle contraction. What else is needed for muscle contraction? Calcium. Now, muscles have huge amounts of calcium in intercellular stores. Remember sarcoplasmatic reticulum from last semester? It's an internal store of calcium. However, the muscles are working really hard, really fast. Even those sources of calcium are going to be depleted. Yes, it gets a return, but you need to do this fast. So a lot of calcium is removed from the internal store, goes into the cytoplasm, and helps with a with a contraction, and then gets brought back into the sarcoplasmatic reticulum, and then you're not going to lose some of that. You cannot use all of the calcium as efficiently as possible, so you need to bring in more. So you can already guess that parent hormone is going to be a little higher than calcitonin. Is going to bring calcium from various other stores, from bones and teeth and intestine and urine, and put it into the bloodstream. So muscles have more calcium available to them. So calcium, oxygen, and glucose. What brings calcium, oxygen, and glucose to the muscles? Well, cardiovascular system, right? It comes in with blood, which means if the muscles are working really, really hard and really, really fast, and they need all of that material in large quantities and really, really fast, it means the cardiovascular system needs to work harder, which means that the heart is going to beat faster and stronger. We're going to get into cardiovascular system soon, so we're going to talk in detail about how that happens. But this is something that is going to be stimulated by the sympathetic nervous system and by adrenaline, epinephrine, and norepinephrine. Um, so you have much faster circulation, much more blood can get to the muscles in a shorter amount of time. What happens with respiratory system? Well, you need more oxygen for the muscles, so respiration is also going to accelerate. You're going to breathe faster, and you're also going to breathe deeper. You're going to have bigger breaths in order to expel carbon dioxide, which is produced by this increased activity of muscles, and to bring in more oxygen, which is needed in muscles by the muscles to break down glucose and get energy in the form of ATP. So cardiovascular system is going to be stimulated during stress response, and respiratory system is going to be stimulated by the stress response. What about glucose? Absorption of glucose from food is a very slow process, and then it needs to go through the hepatic portal system and all the liver stuff and all that stuff. You don't have time for an hour of that. If you're running from a line, you need to you know get that glucose in seconds and not in an hour, which means that the source of glucose are going to be intercellular stores. Muscles themselves store a lot of glucose, which they're immediately going to use, and then the liver stores enormous quantities of glucose in the form of glycogen, which is going to be broken down by hormones like cortisol and and glucagon, and taken out of the cells. Glucose is going to be taken out of the cells into the bloodstream and shunted to the muscles. Uh, so, what's the use of the digestive system? None. It's taking up a lot of energy. It's taking up a lot of water. Remember, during digestion, the stomach and intestine are full of liquid. That's our own water. That water might be better used to increase the blood pressure in order to bring more blood to the muscles. So the stress response using both the hormones and epinephrine and norepinephrine and the nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, are going to inhibit the gastrointestinal system, all of it, all the secretions. That's why I have dry mouth, because your salivary glands are inhibited. Everything, all the movements, all the secretions in the mouth, in the stomach, in the intestine are going, pancreas, all of that is going to be inhibited by the sympathetic nervous system and by epinephrine during stress response. What else is going to happen with other systems in the body? Remember, the sensory system is going to be elevated so you can process information much faster. The nervous system is going to be, in full flight. Your sense of time might slow down so you can take in more information per unit of time so you can make better decisions as you're running away from the lion. Your muscles are working to the max. Cardiovascular and respiratory system are very much stimulated in order to provide everything the muscles needs to do. So all the other systems are inhibited. Immune system is inhibited. You're going to run away from the lion for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Even if the lion manages to scratch you, immune system doesn't need to immediately respond to whatever germs the lion's claws or teeth had. Once you are alive, you have escaped from the lion, then your immune system can kick back in and take care of those germs. Immune system also takes quite a lot of energy. Urinary system. Well, you're running away from the lion. This is not a good time to pee. You don't want to stop and pee. You want to run and then pee later. Um, so urinary system is also going to be inhibited by the sympathetic system and by epinephrine. Reproductive system. Of course, this is not the time to stop and reproduce. But if you survive, if you manage to run away from the lion, you will probably get an opportunity to reproduce and uh, bring your genetics, your genes, into your offspring. You have successfully survived a chase by a lion, which means that your body, including your stress response, have worked well. So your offspring is going to hopefully have the same genetics and be able to survive lions in the future. So everything that is not involved in stress response, all the other organ systems are inhibited by the sympathetic system and by epinephrine. Um, all of that is something that you can easily bring back to mind as you're studying other systems. We are going to study cardiovascular, and you remember, oh, I'm a zebra, cardiovascular needs to work harder. So you know how epinephrine and how the sympathetic system affect the cardiovascular system. The same with the respiratory system. We work on immune system. You know it's inhibited by sympathetic system and epinephrine. You know that the kidney and the urinary bladder are going to be inhibited by sympathetic system and epinephrine. You know that the reproductive system is going to be inhibited by sympathetic system and epinephrine. So it's very, very easy instead of memorizing for each one of the organs and each one of the organ systems. So how does the sympathetic and parasympathetic act on it? What's the effect of epinephrine? You just think, what would the zebra's body do? And imagine you're a zebra. So yeah, I'm not going to stop to pee, but I need my heart to work harder, and that is how you remember it for the rest of your life. Now, obviously, acute stress response, and everything we talked about so far is acute stress response, is a fantastic adaptive function honed over millions of years in many, many generations of zebras, and not just zebras, all organisms from bacteria to humans and everything in between, in order to avoid dangers, potential dangers, which are detected by, there's a change in the environment, and then you do whatever you take to get change it back to your normal, safe environment that is productive for you. So uh, that is acute stress response. However, uh, sometimes the environment is such, or we are such, that we perceive danger where there's none. A lot of people in times like this, everything from the state of politics to COVID to economic situation and all that stuff is perceived as a lion, and you can't run away from it in 2 minutes and then calm down and go graze. You are constantly stressed. That is now chronic stress response. That is not something honed by natural selection as a fantastic adaptation for survival. This is a disorder. What happens when you perceive the environment as being a lion all the time? Well, what does the sympathetic system do? What does epinephrine do? It's going to raise your blood pressure, right? Your cardiovascular system is working harder. Your pulse and your blood pressure are higher than normal. Your respiratory system is stimulated all this time. You're breathing a little bit harder and a little bit faster than normal. Both the heart and the lungs and the cardiovascular system as a whole are going to be uh, overworked. For days, weeks, months, years overworking those systems, they're going to fail eventually. Your gastrointestinal system is inhibited. Problems with digestion. Less secretions, that means less hydrochloric acid in your stomach. Easier for um, H. pylori to initiate the origin of the peptic ulcer, the stomach ulcer. So you are more likely to get ulcer when you're stressed. Um, Urinary system inhibited, so you have problem with the kidneys and with the urinary bladder. Reproductive system inhibited. That's why we invented Viagra. There are going to be all sorts of negative uh, results from having a chronic stress response, because some of the systems are constantly stimulated and working too hard, while the others are constantly inhibited and not doing their job properly. So, in the end, everything falls apart. This is also something that can lead to, you know, immune system being lower, which is also already inhibited. So all sorts of other things, like you're going to have more colds and flus, more easily to get COVID. You're going to get more things like various kinds of cancers, like breast cancer, um, uterine cancer, uh, are because your body is not going to detect it initially and destroy the first cells that are cancerous. So stress response is fantastic when it's acute, and it's a great learning tool about everything in your body, how all those systems relate and how they work with each other, and which are stimulated and which are inhibited by epinephrine and by the sympathetic nervous system. While chronic stress is a disorder that can lead to all sorts of other problems that you, as health professionals, are going to encounter in your careers. So, this is a very important kind of a topic, stress response, for understanding the entirety of